Tough night for Eddie Alvarez and Demetrious Johnson last night. They both lost in one championship's debut on TNT. We're talking about that right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Nick, one FC, one championship, had their debut on TNT here in the States last night.
Yeah.
And I know at least for us here in the States, it's been a bit hard with the time zones and figuring out how to actually watch some of these cards that they put on, that I've actually missed a few of them. I was really glad last night to see it airing sort of at a primetime slot on a major network, TNT, here in the States. And what a great production they put on. It's not just MMA. You got Muay Thai, you got kickboxing, and I was impressed with the overall product.
Yeah, I'm super happy. It's kind of like a nice little midweek treat, you know. We've kind of been following Eddie Alvarez and Mighty Mouse more closely than one as a whole. But, you know, they've got some great talent over there as far as the MMA goes. But it's really cool to see high level, some of the highest level Muay Thai on the planet taking place on the same night, on the same card, in the same octagon, or cage. And it's just a nice, different thing that we get to enjoy in the sport. You know, there is sort of a set standard that we look for as fight fans, but when somebody brings something a little bit new, a little bit different in for us to enjoy, and they pull it off, it's always something really nice.
It really is, and I like what one's doing. They're kind of reinventing what a night of fights actually might look like.
Yeah.
They just signed Gordon Ryan, as you know, who's probably the best no-gi grappler on the planet right now. He's making a lot of waves in the jiu-jitsu circle. If you're a fan of jiu-jitsu, you certainly know who Gordon is. They have him signed, and he's got the option. Obviously, he's going to compete in jiu-jitsu there. They have Gary Tonin, who's a fellow member of the Danaher Death Squad, signed to one who's competing mostly in MMA. But Gordon's going to have the opportunity to compete in jiu-jitsu against some of the highest-level jiu-jitsu guys. He's also going to have a chance to compete in MMA. We know Buchecha is also signed to one championship, and he's looking to fight MMA. I think it's really cool. I think it allows for crossover. And for people like us who are fans of fighting in general, it's very common that I'll watch a night of submission grappling fights, or I'll watch some really high-level Muay Thai out of Thailand, a stadium fight or something like that. So I love to see all of that together in one product.
Right. And you know, one thing that's pretty interesting is people always fantasize over cross promotion, and while it's not technically a cross promotion because it's all under the one fighting championship banner, but if there was ever a Muay Thai guy that we wanted to see fight a MMA fighter, or a Dutch kickboxer we wanted to see go in with MMA rules against a grappler, then we could probably make that happen pretty easily over there. I think that's pretty cool. It kind of gives you a little throwback vibes to how the UFC started, when it was pretty much single disciplines versus other disciplines. So I think there's opportunities for them to go all kind of crazy directions with the amount of different martial arts that they broadcast to us.
So let's get right into the great championship fight last night. Adriano Moraes knocking out 125 GOAT Demetrious Johnson. This was a guy who a lot of people were touting was, and rightfully so, the best fighter competing in the UFC at the time that he was competing there. He obviously won the Grand Prix to get into this title fight with Moraes, and Moraes was able to stay behind his jab, kind of forced Demetrious to rush in a little bit, catch him, and finish with a beautiful, violent exchange of hands and knees. So one is obviously showing that they have some tremendous talent.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's certain accolades in this sport that are very rare, and a win over Demetrious Johnson is certainly one of those. Everybody that fights from 125 to 145 would love to get a win over somebody like DJ, the GOAT, the flyweight GOAT for sure. But now that he's fighting at 135, I guess some bantamweights would say, hey, I wish I could get a piece of that. It's very interesting to see the evolution of the sport. You know, Mighty Mouse is an innovator, and he's probably a guy that these fighters and certainly fighters in the UFC and in Bellator, they watch and they idolize growing up, and they were like, man, I'd love to be able to not only share the octagon with him, but actually just get to meet him and learn from him and all those kinds of things. And now you see them as they grow, they get better and better. And then they get a chance to compete with a living legend. It's probably a really cool feeling for him.
Yeah, Adriano Moraes said as much last night. He said, I grew up watching this guy. I grew up idolizing this guy. He's Brazilian. He trains at American Top Team, but he's, competes obviously in one championship, but he grew up as a kid just watching in pure awe of what DJ was doing in the UFC, and then to have the chance to fight him and ultimately knock him out, that's got to be a dream come true. Moraes is a really incredible fighter. He's got only, after last night, he's 19-3. But I will point out that all 3 of those losses were split decision losses. So at least one of the judges thought that he won all 3 of those fights. He could be 21-0. And the last 2 split decision losses, he turned it around and immediately avenged them and beat the guys that he lost the split decisions to. Wow. So he's a really high-level guy. To do what he did last night to Demetrious Johnson, a fighter who, quite frankly, looks like he's still in his physical prime. He looked like the DJ of old. He was moving in and out, kind of throwing those fast shots, peppering the quick inside leg kicks. Certainly was very familiar watching him compete last night. For a guy to take him out in that fashion, to knock him out, certainly speaks to the level that Moraes and one championship in general has on their roster. Because if you look at his fights in the past, there's not a whole lot of name recognition there, but throw all that out the window. You knock out DJ, that's all the name recognition you need.
Absolutely. And, DJ is, one thing I want to touch on first is that guy's clearly never been stopped before. If all of his losses come in decisions and split decisions, then we're talking about a very tough and durable fighter. And DJ, I don't want people to think that this young, new on the scene prospect, this new stud from ONE FC that I'm pretty new to, I didn't know much about him going into this fight, is catching DJ on the way out, or that DJ's on the back nine of his career. What I saw out of DJ was still peak level performance out of Mighty Mouse. The pace that he carries, he's always been that guy where, even if you do throw something at him and he has to evade it by moving backwards, he's right back in your face 2 seconds later. You don't get time to, like they say, enjoy your shots, or you don't get time to watch your work or admire your work. He's in your face from start to finish. And to see this young Brazilian really stay calm and composed in those situations where he's clearly under fire and score when he needed to score. And then he was able to implement his own offense, and that eventually led to a knockout, which is it was very impressive. And I think that he deserves all the credit, because it wasn't a lesser Mighty Mouse by any means. It was definitely a high-level Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, no, he deserves all the credit in the world. And I think he's been kind of at the top of the heap at ONE for a while. But as I said, at least here in the States, with the time zone differences and all that, that's the one promotion that we watch probably the least of. Right. We watch a lot of Bellator, a lot of UFC. Obviously, most of those take place in the U.S. Primetime time slots, which makes it just easier and more convenient for us. Shout out to all you guys in the UK. I know a lot of you guys from the UK watch. They're loyal fans. I don't know, getting up at 6 a.m. or whatever it is.
Those are real fans.
You guys are the real MVPs, as Kevin Durant says.
And thanks to TNT for bringing on ONE, because I'm really excited to watch more competitions out of them and see, maybe they'll have a grappling night. Maybe they'll have a Dutch kickboxing night, or maybe they'll just keep giving us a whole variety of fights to enjoy on Wednesday nights and stuff like that. Yeah, and they have multiple cards lined up for April now, so I think they're making a pretty strong push. But what's cool to me is that we have an opportunity to here to get fans from other places that maybe wouldn't have necessarily been here. And what I mean by that is a lot of people like MMA, but we train jiu-jitsu every day. There's a few people that go to Gracie Barra that they watch jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? They really don't care much about the UFC. They don't care much about Bellator. They follow the IBJJF gi guys. They follow Gary Tonin, Gordon Ryan, the Death Squad, those guys. And they might have no idea who a great Muay Thai champion is, but they might
just log on and watch this one championship fight because they see Gordon's going to be taking on Buchecha in a jiu-jitsu match. And then before that, they're going to get to see some incredible Muay Thai from some stadium fighters out of Thailand, and vice versa. Some people in Thailand don't know much of it. It's grappling. It's rolling around on the ground. I don't really know what that is. I like the punches and the kicks. And then they see Gordon Ryan go out there and put on a spectacular performance. You have a new fan of jiu-jitsu. And so I think a lot of different corners of the world where it's not really, they don't really care much about grappling, or vice versa, they don't really care much about Muay Thai. You're going to see them become crossover fans. And I think that's a cool thing that one is doing. And I don't think that is overstated or should be overlooked.
No, and they're going to tap into all of those markets, and eventually, what's going to happen is it's going to work really well for one, because then you're going to have people tuning in that are new fans of the sport that they've introduced them to. So I think it's a very smart move. I love mixed martial arts, and I love watching a night full of mixed martial arts, but if you want to pepper in some other styles of fights, I'm more than down to watch, and I love it all, so I'll enjoy whatever they give me. But for somebody who's never seen Muay Thai or seen the pace that some of those striking only matches have, or they've never even watched a grappling match, but they're kind of intrigued by jiu-jitsu, that might turn them on. That might turn them into a fan. That might turn them into an athlete. They might want to go try jiu-jitsu after they watch it and they see just how different and intricate it actually is. And I think it's a really smart move by one. I'm happy to finally get to see one. Like you were saying, we didn't watch a ton of one just because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I saw all the highlights on social media and I was keeping up through that, but I like to sit down and get a nice big glass of water or some popcorn or something and watch a fight or a night of fights. And now we get to do that, and we have a time and a channel and a place we can go and enjoy ONE FC.
No, it's very cool. And listen, if you're one of the UFC casual fans that doesn't like to see a lot of groundwork and people trying to pass the guard and ground and pound sort of thing, that fight after the DJ fight last night, the main event, I mean, talk about action-packed.
Yeah.
And that's somebody who might not have seen or been familiar with a Muay Thai rule set before that is now a huge fan of those fighters and of that fighting style. I think if there was one sour note last night, it was our boy Eddie Alvarez, the Underground King. I wasn't really happy with the way that fight ended. No. I thought Eddie was done kind of wrong in that situation. I believe that Yuri Lapricus, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. It's spelled with a small L. I believe it's pronounced with a Y. Was sort of acting a little bit. He turned his head. Eddie hit a nice takedown and was in top position, was raining some shots down. And then the guys, and the shots were all hitting kind of on the ear or just right behind the ear, but they were touching the ear every time, which is important because that's legal. And then Yuri sort of turned his head away from the shots, which allowed the shots to hit the back of the head. And then a few of those got through. And then I think Yuri acted a little bit kind of, writhing in pain. And that's when the referee kind of stepped in, stopped the fight, and then ultimately DQ'd Eddie for strikes to the back of the head. I think it was the wrong call. Frankie the Answer Edgar went as far on social media as to call Yuri soft for doing that. I can't blame him. No. But it was a great fighter nonetheless, but I think that was a bad move last night.
Yeah, and I think the call was a little premature as well. If I'm going back and thinking about it the next day, I look at it as Yuri got put in a position which is very familiar to UFC fighters that followed Khabib, because he was sitting in that position that Khabib puts everybody in. And Eddie Alvarez clearly took some notes of the Dagestani wrestling style and had Yuri in this horrible position and was throwing those strikes, and they looked really good. They looked very hard. There was really no answer defensively, and I think he thought maybe he was going to be allowed to get up and get back to his feet, kind of like a gimme from the referee. But the ref came in like calling it off in an instant and like already had the disqualification ready to pull the red card out and everything like that. So
yeah, that was interesting. The red cards and yellow, a little take from football or soccer, as you call it.
I'll have to brush up on those rules because I don't know exactly what warrants a yellow and a red, but it was kind of weird. And Eddie Alvarez is one of the good guys in this sport. He's literally never trying to do anything to compromise somebody else's health. I get that we're talking about cage fighting, but there are rules, and if there's a rule follower in this sport, it's Eddie Alvarez. He's not trying to cheat his way to anything. He didn't cheat to get the UFC title. He didn't cheat to get the Bellator titles.
Yep.
He's not going to try to cheat now. And it's just unfortunate to see the fight in that way. I really don't think that it should have ended in a disqualification loss for Eddie.
At the most, a no contest. If you're going to stop the fight, it's got to be a no contest.
And in the first round. Usually if it goes several rounds, they'll go to the judges' scorecards and kind of do some math from there. But at the first round, you just kind of got to call this a no contest and let these guys run it back.
Yeah, or even I'll go the other way. Give Yuri Lapicus a warning for intentionally making Eddie hit him in the back of the head.
Right.
And then, like you said, maybe you stand it up. It's kind of a wash, and you just go back at it, or even start from that position again. But listen, Eddie's had a bit of a tough go since he's been at one championship. He's now 1-2. He's got a losing record over there at one, if you can believe that. But here's the thing: Yuri was the number 2 ranked fighter in the weight class going into last night. So if Eddie can get a win over him, it's presumably to the title next, or a title shot. And so I think Eddie, even though his record doesn't reflect it, he got knocked out in his first fight. It happens to everybody. He's one of the best fighters in the one's lightweight division, but he just hasn't had a chance to really prove that yet, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, with the lack of the amount of competitions they were having, I guess, last year, he suffered his first loss in his debut out there, and then he was able to get a win, but now this is just another bump in the road. So I would like to see Eddie get back in there sooner than later, hopefully in like the third quarter of this year, maybe the end of the year. But I just
he took no damage, so that he could get back.
He was manhandling the fight. He was definitely in control until they called the fight off. So,
and I just want to point out one quick thing. Sorry to interrupt you there, but the turnaround times at one. I love what they do when you said turn them around quick with the weight cutting situation, because they do check the hydration levels. They don't allow for extreme weight cutting. Everybody's basically moved up a weight class to fight at their natural weight class. Love that. Yeah. I really respect one for doing that. I think you're going to be able to see people turn around a lot faster. A lot of times, obviously, if you get broken orbitals, you get really badly beat up and concussed, you have to take time off for that. But I think a lot of the reason that we see inactivity in the UFC and in Bellator and other organizations is because it's so damn hard to cut that weight, and just having to do it over and over again takes its toll on the body. So that said, I think that Eddie could turn right back around and fight again, because all he's got to do is cut the fat. You don't have to cut the water.
Yeah, and in a career, if you fight 25 times, that's a great lengthy career. It's easier to fight 25 mixed martial arts contests than it is to cut weight 25 times for mixed martial arts contests. And, if you've never been through it, it's very difficult, but it's something that literally you don't wish on your worst enemy if you have to make a severe weight cut, because it is just a brutal, it could be anywhere from 2 days to an entire week for some people of the weight cut portion. Yeah. And that's not talking about the 8 weeks of strict dieting it takes to get even in the realm of making weight. So I do really like that. I wish weight cutting wasn't such a big part of the sport. It is. It's something we have to deal with for right now, but hopefully this rubs off. This one championship rule rubs off on all the other promotions, and everybody just kind of makes that natural leap up.
I think so. I draw a distinction in my head. I almost wish they would call it weight cutting, which is losing body fat through proper diet and hard training for a fight, and then intentional dehydration, which is the bad part. Weight cutting, if you're just talking about eating healthy, preparing for a fight, making sure your body and mind are firing at all cylinders, and training hard, you're going to naturally lose that body fat. No issue with that whatsoever. Where the issue comes in is this extreme dehydration that takes place in order to make a weight on a scale, and one has seemingly done away with that. I really, really like that.
Yeah, they definitely took a scientific approach. They didn't just say everybody move up a weight class and they don't check the most important thing, which is the hydration. They're doing exactly what they need to do. I really, really like that. And everybody, it's okay. You're still fighting the same people. Everybody just moves up one division. Yep. We'll even take the names. If you really like the name of your division, we'll take it and move it up.
Yeah. So 170 is now lightweight.
Right, exactly. So make it easy for everybody, and you'll have much less pullouts from fights. You'll have less sick athletes, less injured athletes. And all in all, it's just a good thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited for one. And listen, Adriano Moraes I knew the name. I had name recognition, but I didn't really know the level that he was at.
Yeah, me either.
I'm a huge fan now. I followed him on social media.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see who else I become a fan of now that, the MMA world is so hard to keep up with. There's just 600 fighters in the UFC. We obviously watch Bellator. We cover a lot of Bellator fights. We're big into boxing. We like jiu-jitsu. At some point, it gets hard to cover all the athletes and get to know all the athletes for that matter. But one championship has a lot of good ones, as was demonstrated by Moraes last night, and I can't wait to become fans of more of their great athletes.
Yeah, and it's a great product and a great promotion, so they definitely do a good job telling the story of these fighters and telling the story of the fights that we're about to watch. So, yeah, hats off to ONE FC. I can't wait for the next one.
No doubt, me either. Guys, thanks for watching last night. Did you guys all enjoy the debut of ONE FC on TNT? Let us know in the comments. Do you think Eddie Alvarez was done wrong? And do you think DJ has a path to get back and get another belt in his career, the ONE FC belt? We always enjoy socializing with you guys there. Thanks again so much for the engagement. We really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. Have a great day.
Peace.